It's time for the Daily Planet podcast show. So sit back, relax, and give us a go. Scott and Matt and maybe a guest have undertaken an epic pod quest. We're gonna ramble on about movies and books and television and directors and film festivals and this really long list of stuff that I know nothing about, but they gave it to me and they really wanted me to read through it. And that's all I can really say about it, but it's gonna be great. Okay, start the show.
Hello and welcome to the Daily Planet podcast, your weekly podcast for all things movies, TV, books, and anything else we feel like talking about. My name is Scott Daly and I am your host, and I am not joined by a co-host this week because my usual co-host Matt is out sick. Babies get humans sick, apparently. That's how that works. I wouldn't know. But fortunately, I've got two excellent guests this week. First up, regular podcast guest, James Gentry. James, welcome back to the podcast.
Hey guys, thanks for having me back. It's been a while, and glad to be here.
It has been a while. I'm glad to have you back.
And also, thanks. It's been a fun summer.
And also on the podcast is Adrian. Adrian, welcome back.
Hey, thanks.
Good to have you, man. Thank you guys for jumping on and helping me out with this. We wanted to do a podcast still this week, but Matt couldn't make it, so we had to get creative. It is September 1st, gentlemen, so that means the summer is officially over. So what we are here to do today is to recap summer 2016 in the movies and talk about what our favorite movies were, talk about our opinions on the summer as a whole, and then look forward to what the fall movie season will bring us. You know, the crazy thing is, Gentry, you were on this. It was about this time last year that we did this for summer 2015, and that was only our second episode.
Oh my gosh. God, that seems like ages ago.
I know. This is episode 48, so we're coming right on a year.
Woo. Fantastic, man.
I think we've only missed one episode, two, because one of them, the recording equipment ate it.
Oh.
But in a year, that's pretty good.
That's great, actually. I'm really curious to, I kind of want to go back to that old episode and see what we had to say about some of the movies upcoming that we just went through.
Yeah.
This god-awful summer.
It would be very interesting to see that. Before we get into the summer, though, I wanted to go through some quick news with you guys. It's been a little while since we've done news, and some things have happened that are worth talking about. The first thing I want to talk about to start this podcast on a downer note, because that's what I like to do. I want to talk about Gene Wilder, who passed away on Monday. I don't know what your history with Gene Wilder movies are. I saw Young Frankenstein at a pretty young age and absolutely loved it. What about you guys?
Yeah, I mean, I actually, so unfortunately, I only got to see Young Frankenstein like maybe a couple of times, as I was growing up, different times or whatever. But I definitely loved it. I mean, it was definitely one of the movies that I can remember fondly that was black and white that made me laugh hysterically at points. And, Willy Wonka could probably quote most of it. I've seen that movie about 100 times. But yeah, and then Blazing Saddles, unfortunately, I only saw once. But yeah, it's definitely sad news, but, he was pretty old. Seemed to live a good life, I guess. I don't know. I didn't really know a lot about him personally, I guess. How about you guys?
I grew up a big Gene Wilder fan for all, of course, all the Mel Brooks movies that you mentioned, and of course all those team ups with Richard Pryor were, of course, fantastic.
Yeah.
It's sad that he's gone, but he had trouble the last several years with complications. Alzheimer's was starting to get the better of him, basically. So while it's sad that he's gone, it's kind of better that he went now as opposed to living like another 5 to 10 years and progressively getting worse and worse. When you have lots of actors or people who are in the public eye a lot, and he'd definitely taken a step back for years and years, but it gets sad towards the end, and you don't want that image burned into your mind of them. You want all these memories that you have of the different movies that they were in. And Gene Wilder's great in interviews too. If you watch, if you go onto YouTube, see any of the old interviews with him, he was somebody who just kind of radiated joy. He and Mel Brooks are two special individuals that when people are sitting down and talking with them, they kind of let them command the conversation, and people just listen to the stories or let them go on their way. And what should be like a 10-minute conversation ends up being like a 20 or 30-minute conversation, it seems.
Yeah. And I think, everyone talks about how the standard joke is how 2016 is the year that all of the legends in film and entertainment seem to be dying. I think Gene Wilder's the first one that I'm like, yeah, okay, he was very old, he was very sick. Like, I don't think it's a tragedy him dying. I certainly think it's a good moment to pause and consider his legacy and his films and what an impact he had on so many people. And I think that's really great. And I wish I could have enjoyed watching a bunch of Gene Wilder movies this past week. Unfortunately, there are none on any streaming services, which is just ridiculous. That's just another example of why physical media is the best and why I will still always buy movies. Because I wanted to watch a bunch of movies this week and I couldn't because I didn't own any of them. So,
yeah, I did hear AMC Theaters, I think, was going to play Willy Wonka and Blazing Saddles sometime this weekend. Saturday and Sunday.
Yeah, they are, and so is Alamo Draft House. My local Draft House actually played Blazing Saddles tonight. I couldn't go to it, but
ours is doing it on Saturdays, doing a free screening of Blazing Saddles, and then next month, and I think I might try to get tickets for it because it's on a Thursday before I go out of town. And they already had this planned before Gene Wilder, so it's going to be special and sad. They're having a Willy Wonka showing on the 22nd of September in Kansas City. And they're going to have Mike TV, the guy who played Mike TV and the girl who played Veruca Salt are going to be there.
Oh, wow. That's really awesome. I will be at Fantastic Fest on the 22nd. So.
Yeah, I'll be there 2 days later. Don't rub it
in. I'll be there at the end.
Exactly. So... but what I was going to say concerning Gene Wilder is that this makes me very nervous about Mel Brooks, and that somebody needs to grab him and freeze him, just so we know at least where he is and that he's technically alive if he's on ice, because he's the last one of that group, really. And it's sad to think of, but he's the last one standing.
Yeah. And the crazy thing is he seems relatively healthy. I don't know if you watched the Jimmy Fallon interview this week. The guy seems like he's still really sharp. He still has a lot of energy. It's kind of crazy. I think he's 86, right? I think that's
I want to say that. Wait, do we have Carl Reiner too? I feel bad if I made it seem like Carl Reiner was dead and he's still alive. So
I don't think so.
I feel terrible. Okay.
I don't think he's alive.
I thought he had got. I know that's horrible to say that. Yeah. I don't know if somebody's alive or not, but Gene Wilder, I thought, passed a couple of years ago, and I felt bad about that too.
Yeah.
Yeah, Reiner's still alive. He's
he's still kicking. He has Twitter apparently. So.
Well, I learned
he tweeted 2 hours ago. So either someone's keeping him alive, or there's a ghost that knows how to use Twitter.
Well, this is embarrassing. All that to be said, rest in peace, Gene Wilder. Everyone out there, if you haven't seen the producers, if you haven't seen Blazing Saddles, if you haven't seen Young Frankenstein, I don't understand how you've gone through your life without seeing those movies, but they are truly unique and wonderful. And I have ordered the Mel Brooks collection, so I will be watching all those movies because I was really mad that I couldn't watch them again. But all right, moving on to the next bit of news. I think, did everyone here like Stranger Things? I think we did.
Yeah, absolutely. I did.
Yeah,
I haven't read the Hulk's review yet or anything, but
yeah, I know. Matt was, out of all of us, like the clear, like absolutely loved it. So he can't be here to defend it. But Stranger Things season 2 is officially happening. That was announced a couple days ago. It's premiering in 2017 with a 9-episode series. What are you guys' thoughts on this? Because I was I like Stranger Things a lot. I don't want a sequel, and I definitely don't want a sequel that feels as rushed as this thing is. It feels like it's gonna be.
It's not. And the only reason why I say that is because directly after the show came out, because it's Netflix, everybody binge watches. So instead of it being like 2 months down the line, everybody's talking about it. It was 2 to 3 days after it came out. Since it was a weekend thing, everybody had seen it, and by Monday or Tuesday, people had interviews with the creators, the two brothers, and they already said that they had season 2 completely mapped out. They had half of the scripts written to their final draft, and had the rest of the episodes were either in the first or second draft. So the only thing that'll be rushed will be filming it itself. They've got everything worked out, and even Matthew Modine said that he knew everything that was involved for the second season already. So people who are possibly not going to be involved were already made aware of what they wanted to do. So while the filming of it is rather quick, it seems like from the plot points and the story direction that they want to go, that they do already have that locked down.
That's somewhat encouraging. It's kind of crazy that Netflix took that big of a gamble. That said, they made these 8 episodes, and Netflix said, yeah, go ahead and start significant work on creating the next season before it had even released. Like I could see a world in which the show just doesn't find an audience, and it never gets as popular as it is. But so that Netflix takes risks, and I think it's obviously paying off for them.
Yeah.
I think the coolest thing. Sorry, go ahead.
Well, no, I was gonna say like they, I mean, they couldn't have like had done any like private screenings or anything. Like, what if they just really liked it? They saw it like before everybody else. You know?
I mean, I'm sure that happened, but you never know how things are going to resonate. With the
very true,
the whole audience. I think
especially the type of show it was as well. Could have easily just gone the other way.
Right. I think the really cool thing about it though is that every other Netflix show in existence really has had its weekend, and there's a lot of buzz around it, and then the buzz kind of dies. And Stranger Things is something that has stuck around in the cultural consciousness basically all summer, which is kind of crazy for a Netflix show. That's really unheard of. And I think one of the results of that is we're seeing kind of a backlash against it right now, and not just the article on Birth Movies Death by Hulk that was kind of anti, but I think we're seeing it in other places too. And it's like really the first time a Netflix show has had like a backlash, just because I think that's just a result of it never being talked about long enough to have one. So that's kind of interesting. I liked the show a lot. I didn't love it. It was entertaining, and we'll see. We'll see what season 2 can do. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I did like it a lot. It kind of hit everything for me, but yeah, I guess I don't know. Like, there's no stopping it, obviously, and if it's already in the works, I just got to trust that it's going to be at least 75% decent. But I'm open-minded, and Netflix, I feel like, hasn't stumbled very much, and if they have, I haven't really seen it, so I have confidence that they'll be able to at least give us something, maybe not as fresh and exciting and hit on every single emotional beat, but maybe at least have a still a good story that kind of maybe changes things up a little bit, kind of keeps us guessing.
Yeah. All right, so that's Stranger Things season 2. Look for that in 2017. I don't think they've announced a release date yet. Probably a little later in the year than the first season came out this year, I'd guess. But last on the news, this just came out today. Jackie Chan is getting an honorary Oscar at this year's Academy Awards. So he was never got a real Oscar, but they're going to give him an honorary one. What do you guys? How do you feel about this, Adrian?
Sad. And the main reason for that is, I mean, there's lots of people who get honorary awards because it's kind of I'm trying to read the actual description. Whose remarkable talents have provided cinematic history with some of the most remarkable characters or advancements. They try to give it to people that they can't find another reason to celebrate that they know are never going to win, like the best actor. If Jackie Chan's getting it now, it kind of becomes a question of how long do we have to wait till somebody's like, here, Andy Serkis, we're going to give this to you now because we're never going to allow any motion capture performances to be nominated.
Yeah.
But the person that this hurts the most, not so much their legacy, but just the fact that they never won, is somebody who is nominated 8 times and never won an Academy Award, but got an honorary award as kind of we're really sorry that we've been idiots for your entire career, is Peter O'Toole.
Yeah.
So now the same award that Peter O'Toole got, it also belongs to Jackie Chan.
But he did all his own stunts.
And Peter
the
O'Toole
Bronx,
was
man.
in a movie called The Stuntman, so I guess that's a
Well, there you
connection.
go. It's full circle. No, I mean, I'm happy for Jackie Chan. I guess this is This is interesting news. I didn't know they announced these things this early. Like, it's not. It's September. It's not.
Yeah,
It's
that's
a
really
very
early.
long time before the Oscars. But I think clearly the only way the Academy can make things up to Sylvester Stallone after last year's tragedy is to give him an honorary Oscar as well. Because it was
They won't.
because it
They
was a
won't.
tragedy. They should. He was robbed.
I feel like I heard somewhere recently that Jackie Chan's movies in China were actually pretty good. I don't know. Is that
Well,
true?
and-
I haven't seen any
As
of
in
his
his
like,
early career?
I guess, yeah, maybe.
Oh,
Like-
yes.
Oh yeah,
not,
it's,
not,
it's
not like the ones that I
wonderful.
know.
It's
Not
yeah.
obviously.
great.
No,
Yeah,
Um,
maybe
I will
maybe
tell
that's
you.
what you're referring to. Oh, so.
Yeah, I'll tell you directly off the bat. Track down Crime Story and Crime Story 2. And then I know you might only be able to find the American version, but then in America it's under Legend of the Drunken Master. If you're looking from the other side, Drunken Master 2 is what it's called. But those are our 3
Nice.
action films. But Crime Story 1 and 2 are huge when it comes to Jackie Chan and the insanity of his stunts. That they're really close in tone and kind of shows the shifting of his career between Crime Story 1 and 2. Crime Story 1 is completely insane in the stunts that he does. And the end of Crime Story has a stunt that he did, and you can actually see him pausing in the movie before he does the stunt because of how crazy it was, and he ended up burning off all the nerve endings on the inside of his hand when he did the final stunt. But it was like those 2 movies there. He did a whole bunch of other ones, but Crime Story and Crime Story 2 are ones that stick out for everybody just because of how crazy the stunts are that he does pull off.
See, there we go. That right there
There you go.
deserves an honorary Oscar. And I think it's clear that the person that should present this to him is none other than Chris Tucker.
God,
Uh,
be the worst move ever.
Would it be the first time he was invited to the Academy Awards?
This
No,
is true. But yeah, good for him, I guess.
Yeah,
Yeah.
all right. So that's it for news this week. Let's move right along to summer 2016. So what I wanted to do with you guys on this week is I've put together my top 5 movies of the summer. And I just wanted to kind of go through them and talk about them a little bit and see what you guys thought about them if you didn't see them. For the people listening at home, these are all really good movies, according to my opinion, which is clearly the right one. So if you haven't seen any of them, you really should. Some of them are not in theaters anymore, but some of them are already on home video. And one of them is still in theaters, and you need to see it right away. But, okay, starting with number 5, I picked Wiener, the documentary about Anthony Weiner. I just saw this movie I think it was on Monday, actually, after the additional scandal broke out for Anthony Weiner. And this documentary is wonderful. For those that don't know, this follows Anthony Weiner around during his mayor campaign for mayor of New York City. This is basically after the first scandal broke related to his sending explicit direct messages and accidentally posting them on Twitter. And and for whatever reason, he granted the directors of this film like super intimate access to his campaign. And so they were cataloging his campaign, which was actually going quite well. And then, of course, his second scandal broke, where he did the same thing again. This time even worse, actually. And so they get to catalog the campaign's crash and burn, and kind of the destruction of his life at the time, and the what eventually led to his marriage ending, which was announced, I think, on Sunday after this latest scandal broke. Have either of you guys seen this film?
No, I haven't seen it yet.
No.
You both really need to, and everyone out there should give it a view too. It's on video on demand right now. You can rent it or buy it. It's really good. It's good on. It's the kind of thing that, like any good documentary, operates on a lot of different levels. Like, it's a really good political documentary. You get to see like the inner workings of a campaign in a way that you probably would never have gotten to see before. Like, you see them making the fundraising calls and like how much they hate doing that. You see like their reactions before and after the calls. But then it also operates on kind of seeing this man who, you know, the thing that made him popular is also the thing that leads to his own destruction, which he's kind of outspoken and reckless, and has a really short fuse and doesn't really think through things before he does them. So you see kind of his destruction, and you see the relationship between him and his wife Huma, who is a very high level member of the Clinton office, Hillary Clinton. She's been with Hillary Clinton since she was a senator, and so she in November will be most likely in a very powerful position. But you kind of get to see their interplay in their marriage, and how all this stuff destroys their marriage. And then also it operates on some sort of level on how the media kind of sensationalizes stuff like this. And it's just very well made, and it's very fascinating. And this guy clearly has problems, especially in light of what happened last week, where he was again involved in another scandal involving taking pictures of himself, which, when you have a last name like Wiener, can you blame someone for wanting to take pictures of their wiener all the time?
Man, how terrible can you be with a mobile device?
Ask Anthony Weiner. No, but this is really, really good, and I'm glad I got to see it before doing this podcast, because I'm very happy to include that on here. So guys, check this movie out. Seriously, take some time for it.
Yeah. It sounds really interesting, and honestly, the only side I really get from him is when he's the occasional guest on Real Time, you know, just to be honest. And I guess, obviously, you know, when I hear about his scandals on CNN randomly, but I had no idea that there was a documentary that had followed him around. So that's absolutely, I mean, that sounds like a great watch.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy. Number 4 is Captain America: Civil War. This came out in May, so May counts as summer nowadays, so I'm counting it. I love this movie to death, and I haven't gotten to see it since May, and I think it hits Blu-ray the 13th of September, so I'm really excited to get to sit down with this one and really watch it and analyze it some more. Both of you guys saw this, I'm guessing. Who didn't see this movie?
Yeah, no, I mean, I did.
Yeah, I saw it.
Yeah, absolutely. It was fantastic. I didn't realize it wasn't on the list that I guess I was looking at, probably because it was May. But yeah, it definitely counts.
May's summer. It was the first movie of the summer.
It counts.
Since, I guess we'd say like Iron Man or so.
Yeah,
was one of the first ones that they were like May, and then everybody else is like, ah, shit, we need to get everything out in May.
Yeah, so, I mean, if that's the case, then I would say it's probably my number 1 out of the 6 movies.
So Adrian, I don't think we've ever talked to you about your opinion on this movie. Are you as hot on it as I am?
I haven't seen it again, and it's one of those movies that I definitely have to see again. I like it. I like it a lot. I think that it works with lots of the strengths that, of course, Winter Soldier does, because of the fact that it's the same team that made the Winter Soldier, and so lots of that carries over. There's a lot going on in the film, so if it plays as strong upon repeats is what I'm not sure. It's very much an audience film. It's really one of those movies that you have to see on the big screen. Being there in the dark with a whole bunch of people, getting those rousing moments, elevates your enjoyment of it to another level, I think.
Yeah.
Watching it at home, knowing that those moments are going to be coming, if it has that same effect. The best way to describe it is a horror movie that's predicated on a big twist. The first time you see it, the twist might be great because you don't see it coming, but repeat viewings are what lets you know how good it is. Because if you're watching the movie and you say, okay, these pieces don't really work together, the twist kind of ruins it because it feels cheap. But if it's in service of the rest of the story and you're able to watch everything and say, oh, this is great, and the twist just enhances everything, then it's a great movie. So I think Captain America is very much Civil War is one. I have to watch it again to see if all those fantastic elements are in service of the story or are just to get people to talk about the film, to get other people to see it.
That's fair. That's fair. I will say that it's the only real blockbuster, I guess, on my list. I think it's the only big tentpole movie this summer that worked for me. And we'll get into this historically bad summer a little later on the podcast. But I did see it twice, and I did think it held up the second time. But yeah, I think it will be interesting sitting down with it at home and really dissecting it. I still think the ending is one of the best done third acts in Marvel so far. It's not my favorite in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, but I really love that ending. All right, moving on. Number 3, I picked The Nice Guys. This is Shane Black's buddy cop comedy that took place in the 70s. I hope you guys have seen this movie. You both have seen this movie, right?
Yeah, I definitely saw it and loved it. It's kind of tied with Civil War for me, actually, for the best of the summer.
Are you going to say this for every movie I select, Gentry?
I didn't see it on the list that I saw. I don't know how I missed it, but yeah.
Because it's a May movie. You got to count that May.
Yeah, I think this list is really just going over blockbusters. That's why it's a bad list.
Yeah, so I love Shane Black. Kiss Kiss Bang Bang is probably still my favorite of his movies. But I absolutely adored this movie, and it's out on Blu-ray now, and I owned it, so I watched it again last week. And it still really holds up. It's just really well done.
I'm renting it later this week because I have not seen it yet.
Oh my god!
Because it had. I know. Well, no, I've discussed this with you a couple times.
Yeah, I know, but I want to say, oh my god, on podcast.
Well, no, that's fine. It's I'll let everybody in on the unfortunate history of Shane Black for movies that weren't Iron Man in the last decade here in Kansas. This movie was at, I want to say it was at Alamo Drafthouse for like 2.5 weeks. Everywhere else in town had it for a week. I think it dropped off at Alamo after those 2.5 weeks, was gone for like a week or two, and then popped back for another week somehow magically. But Kiss Kiss Bang Bang, when it came out, it on the Friday that it came out, and then next Tuesday was the last day it was shown in Kansas City. It didn't even last a week.
Wow.
For whatever reason. It was only at 3 AMC theaters in town when it came out.
Man.
And it didn't even last a full week because of how, when it came out, there were several movies that were coming out that Wednesday, and they just decided, okay, it's not making anything, we're pulling it. So movies that aren't Iron Man 3 that Shane Black did don't really go over well here. So I've been waiting for it to come out on digital so that I could rent it.
Yeah, I mean, this is a really good example of why we can't have nice things, because movies like this just don't do very well, and it's really a shame. This movie did not do very well. It didn't have a very long theatrical run. Not many people saw it, and like, it's really frustrating because it's a really, really well made movie. It's by a very talented director who kind of proved that in the mainstream with Iron Man 3. But it's a really great, like, Ryan Gosling is hilarious, like absolutely hilarious. Like, it's almost not fair that he gets to be a guy that looks the way he looks, but also gets to be funny. It's like it's not the way it's supposed to work.
Yeah. No,
okay, you guys heard it first, everyone on the internet. If something happens to Ryan Gosling in the next month and a half that he's horribly disfigured, it's because of Scott.
I'm not gonna say that I wasn't involved, but let's just say I'm gonna go out of town. I'm gonna make a few phone calls and let everyone know where I am, and then if something happens, what happens.
Ryan Gosling, do not come to Fantastic Fest. Do not come to Fantastic.
Oh man, yeah. I love this movie, and I can't wait till you see it, Adrian, because I will love talking to you about it. But it's in the Shane Black way. It's very kind of funny, but like bleak, and I won't say negative because it's not necessarily negative. He just has a very interesting outlook on the world and people, and slightly depressing, but in a funny kind of way. But it's really great.
Yeah, in a funny but real way. And I thought Russell Crowe was fantastic, and it's great to see him in a role that I enjoy very much that he does. I guess, like, I don't know. It felt like old Crowe, where he really cared about the role, it seems. And yeah, Gosling, I mean, he's pretty funny, and one or two other roles. But yeah, in this movie, it just, they're surprisingly a very good kind of like partnership, throughout this little adventure. And you're right, it's definitely kind of like a depressing but also real sense of how things kind of are, and it's cool. Like I love kind of the setting and the decade that they do it in and everything. And like I thought they did a really good job with the scenery, and everything looked definitely kept my attention. And that had nothing to do with the actual script or the story.
Yeah. I'm glad you brought up Russell Crowe, because I'm enjoying the second half of his career right now. I'm enjoying the types of roles he's picking and what he's doing. This was a really good role for him. It's kind of reminiscent of his L.A. Confidential role, in that he's kind of the brutish and enforcer, but a little twist on it. It's a little more deeper and nuanced than that. I appreciated it. It's a good movie. Everyone should see it. It's out now. You have no excuse not to rent it or whatever. It's very good, very funny. All right, number 2. This is a movie that Gentry, I know you didn't see this, but I can't remember if Adrian saw this. This is my number 2 is Swiss Army Man, by the Daniels.
Bummer.
Did you see this, Adrian?
That was another one that was 2 weeks basically here.
You guys.
Oh, I don't even know if it was in San Antonio. I mean, it probably was in maybe like 1 or 2 theaters, but no, I kind of knew I wasn't gonna catch it.
Yeah,
I think I saw a poster board at the quarry randomly, but I don't think it was there.
I was going to say, here's the sad thing about some of these movies only lasting this long, is that where I live, which is in basically Kansas City, Kansas, which is about 5 miles from Kansas City, Missouri, so they're basically the same. We have a state line and everything, but 50 miles within where I live, there are 34 different movie theaters.
and yet they only have it for 2 weeks. That's crazy.
Well, the reason that they have it for 2 weeks is because there's so many different movies that are coming out, and we've got technically 5 or 6 that are theaters that are specifically for art house movies. So to try to keep the turnover, lots of times they'll have lots of movies go through there. So movies like Swiss Army Man was at one AMC theater. It was at Alamo, and then was at 2 of the art house theaters. It lasted at the AMC for exactly a week. It was at the Alamo for 2 weeks, and then was at the 2 other art house theaters for a week. The reason that I know that it only lasted a week at the AMC is because I was planning on seeing it, and it was in the exact same theater that I saw the Neon Demon in the week before it came out, and the Neon Demon only lasted in this one theater for 1 week. That was it. It was at that theater on one screen for 1 week. It was replaced by Swiss Army Man. Swiss Army Man died in that theater a week later.
See, that's just so, and we're gonna get into this a little bit later, but that's what really frustrates me is stuff like that, because I agree, I missed the Neon Demon because I think it was only in our art house theaters for a couple weeks. The turnover in this stuff is so fast now, and even with some of the blockbusters, I know Matt's not here, but he had mentioned to me earlier that he wanted to take his daughter to go see Dory a few weeks ago, and that had already been cycled out, and that's a huge blockbuster movie. So like, they just don't leave these movies in the theater. It falls below a certain point, and they're just like, nope, pull it. But Swiss Army Man is like nothing I've ever seen before, is the easiest way to describe it. For those of you that don't know, the concept is Paul Dano plays a man stranded on an island, and he finds a corpse that washes up on the shore, played by Daniel Radcliffe of Harry Potter fame. The corpse farts and ends up having magical abilities all through bodily functions. Eventually starts talking to him, and Daniel Radcliffe and Paul Dano go on sort of an adventure together with his farting corpse. And I don't want to go too much into the movie without spoiling it, but it's a very very different way to look at how we deal with our issues, and how we deal with our insecurities, and kind of emotional insecurities being shown through physical bodily insecurities. It's just this really, really brilliant, well-made, heartfelt movie about this ridiculous concept that on the surface would probably scare most people away. It's really great, and it has two of the best performances of the year. Paul Dano's very, very good, but I mean, Daniel Radcliffe in this movie is incredible. Absolutely incredible. And the score is very, very good too. It's mostly a cappella.
Oh man, that's fun.
Yeah,
it definitely looked very different, and I was fascinated by the trailer, and I really wanted to see it, and I was kind of bummed out. And when we were walking into another summer movie, and I did, like I mentioned, we saw the kind of the big board or whatever. I pointed it out, and there's this friend of ours in our group, and I was like, "Oh, Swiss Army Man," and she was like, "Oh, I haven't even heard of that. Like, what's it about? Like Daniel Radcliffe or whatever?" And I was like, "Oh, well, I don't know if I can really explain it without, like, you've seen the trailer." I was like, trying to tell her, I was like, "Yeah, he finds this corpse or whatever, and it makes noises, and they end up going on an adventure." And she was like, "Oh yeah, like real cool jams." And I was like, "Oh." And I was like, "You wouldn't understand. Damn it. It looks great." It looked interesting, but yeah, no, it's just one of those things where it's like, if you didn't see anything about it, you'd have no idea.
Yeah, it's interesting.
So I'm glad that it was good.
It's interesting because it's a movie that I think it premiered at Sundance, and a lot of people walked out of it, and I can't imagine a critic or a movie lover like sitting through the first part of this movie and then walking out. Like, I mean, when you guys see it, you'll have to tell me, but like, someone that loves movies, like, I can't understand how they don't like this movie. It's just crazy to me. But that one comes out on Blu-ray on October 4th, and it'll probably be out on digital probably a week or two before that. So it's coming up that you'll be able to check this one out, and I really, really recommend it. The final movie, my number one movie, if you've been talking to me at all the past couple weeks, you probably already know what I'm going to pick. But my number one movie of the summer is the Leica film Kubo and the Two Strings, directed by Travis Knight. This is not only my favorite movie that Leica has done, it's my favorite animated movie in a long time, definitely of this year, and it's probably up there on my favorite movie of the year, definitely my favorite of the summer, obviously. But this movie, it might still be in theaters. I don't know.
It is.
Maybe not where you are, Adrian, because your movie.
No, they have it. They have it because I keep on for the last 2 weekends. I've been trying to pair it with somebody or some other movie. This weekend I failed because I was trying to pair it up with a Mechanic Resurrection. Did not work, and I wanted to see both of them. And since there was no way that they were going to play nice together, I'm going to try again this weekend.
Well, good luck with that. I hope you get to see it before it falls out of the theater, because it is really good. And it didn't open very well. I think it opened at 12 million, but its second week it had 8 million. So the thing about Leica films, and I've looked into this, they never really open very strongly. I think Coraline's their most successful film by far, and it only opened at 4 million, higher than Kubo. So I really hope that word of mouth, and this is part of the reason I'm doing this, is because I want everyone listening to take the time and go see this movie. It is a work of art. It is incredible. It's one of the best stories in a Leica film, and it definitely has the best and most creative and cleanest use of stop motion animation I've ever seen. I mean, there's action in this movie that, like, I cannot believe was done in stop motion. Like, it's staggering. There is a part at the end. I know Daniel mentioned this in one of his podcasts, that there's a part at the end where they kind of show how they did one of the scenes, and you will not believe it. Like, it's impressive. It's a work of art. It's wonderful. Everyone needs to see this movie. I can't. I don't want to live in a world in which this movie doesn't make money. Like, it needs to. So go see the movie. Tell your friends. Everyone go see this movie, please.
I'm definitely going to try to see it before it leaves the theaters. I know it's. I think it's pretty widespread here, so I'll definitely be tackling that soon.
Yeah, it was technically a wide release, so it will stay in theaters a little longer than some of these art house movies we've been talking about. But
yeah, exactly.
It's so good. It's so good. All right, so now that we've talked about the good of summer 2016, let's kind of flip to the other side. I wanted to talk about this with you guys more in general terms. Obviously, some of the worst movies this summer I didn't even bother seeing. I did unfortunately see Ben-Hur though, which was just awful. But the general consensus amongst critics and the industry and people is that the summer of 2016 was one of the worst summers, specifically for blockbuster movies, that we've had in a while. There's all kinds of data to back this up, average Rotten Tomato scores, all this other stuff. So this, of course, every time this happens, every time there's something doesn't go well, or movies don't make money, or sequels don't do as well as they have in the past, there's all this doom and gloom clickbait articles that come out talking about how movies aren't relevant anymore. This proves that people don't care about sequels, or all this nonsense. I wanted to get from you guys what you actually think any of this means, if it even means anything. So, Adrian, what was your overall feeling on summer 2016?
It was a summer. It's a simple and stupid answer, but it's the most obvious one. This is how summer seasons have been over and over and over for years and years now. Basically, it's just that we have such a short memory when it comes to it. This year you had more bad than you had good. It really varies, but every maybe 4 to 5 years you end up kind of in this hole where you've got just a glut of bad movies that all get put out at the same time. And you and I were talking earlier, and I mentioned that it's oversaturation is what it is. It is, even though it starts in May now, as the summer goes on, once you hit around the end of July, beginning of August, you've already had your big movies come out. And in that, when you get to like July 22nd, 23rd to August 8th, you've got the last gasp movie, the movie that wants to come in at the very end when other movies are starting to hit like revival houses and stuff, and kind of pops in, and people are getting ready to go to school, and they want to see something just to go out on a high note, get their friends together one last time. Of course, this year that was Suicide Squad, and but that's why it made the money that it did, because all these other movies had already been out. But you try to cram everything into a few weeks, the middle of May to the beginning / middle of July. You've got like a 6 to 8 week period where it's just movie after movie after movie after movie, and you have some weeks where there's 3 to 4 movies that are directly fighting against each other. That it's oversaturation. But you can seriously look several years back. I know that some people said like 2012, 2013 had some bad movies. 2010 was a huge year that had lots of bad summer movies. You of course had Avatar: The Last Airbender. You had Jonah Hex, Iron Man 2, Sex and the City 2, Prince of Persia. Shrek Forever After. All those
Man.
movies came out at that same time, but they all came out like within a short period, so close together. You look back a couple years before that to something like 2009, when you had Transformers: Revenge of the Fallen, GI Joe, Terminator Salvation, X-Men Origins Wolverine, all came out within like 4 or 5 weeks of each other. Go back a couple years earlier to like 2007, all crammed within like 3 weeks of each other. And I know because I worked at a theater at this time, and it just felt like somebody was punching us in the face each week. Was you had Spider-Man 3 1 week, the third Pirates of the Caribbean movie, and then Shrek the Third come out all within 1 week of each other. And you have that because you're cramming all these movies together. You're going to have lots of bad ones that come out at the same time, and it's because of how big they want these movies to be that I think people are saying that they're so poor. They're focusing on the money aspect. They want to bring in as much money as they can, but in order to do that, they feel like they have to balloon the budget so much more. So you end up having a movie that cost 130 to 200 million dollars that they then say, okay, this movie has to make $1 billion for us to consider it a success because of all the money we're putting into marketing besides the budget itself. And it's reactionary. It's just very reactionary. Everybody is disappointed in what the box office returns were. That's what they're looking at. First of all, summer's always a period where you have big bad movies come out. It's just that because of how highly touted they are, that people make such a big deal about it, I think.
Well, why do you think that this summer in particular, the big budget movie? I mean, yeah, we know they're bad. Like, they're always going to be bad. Last summer had a bunch of bad movies too, but Jurassic World last summer was a bad movie that made $1.5 billion. But we didn't really have this summer. Like, I remember at the beginning of the summer, we had our summer movie preview podcast, and we were talking about how Independence Day could be a movie that really blows up. I never saw Independence Day Resurgence because I don't care, but I very well could guess that has about the same quality of film that Jurassic World did, and one blew up and one tanked. So I mean, what do you think the root cause of that is? Is it just apples and oranges, and we really can't compare them, or?
It's several different things. It is first that it's hard to compare and really say what's going to cause it, but you had lots of stuff going on this summer that I think it just was this weird perfect storm that culminated in people not going to the movies as much because they had lots of other stuff going on. There were, when it came to travel numbers were hugely up for people this year. I don't know what changed it, but lots of people were going on vacation this year compared to the last several years. During the summer, for summer sports, you had, I know it sounds weird to compare, but in America you had the Copa America, which was huge, and lots of people who were soccer fans were going to several different cities for several weeks on end to see these matches, to see these huge players that are never going to come to America ever again. You have basketball that goes into the summer, and this year, because of the fact that you had the Cleveland Cavaliers, of course, were a huge storyline, and people who didn't watch, but people who didn't watch basketball were watching it because they wanted to see LeBron James win this. And because of how many games there are and how they stretch it over, the finals end up taking up a week and a half basically, and that's in the heart of the summer. Mm-hmm. You put all those together, and then you add in one big thing that people don't really mention in their articles, and it's stupid to mention, but it's completely true, is Pokemon Go came out directly in the middle of the summer on July 6th. And that caused so many people who weren't getting together in groups, who weren't going outside, to spend more time outside. You've got all these people who are being active. They're getting more exercise than they have probably in years. But instead of sitting down and spending a couple hours in the dark, they're going to go out outside, sometimes in the dark, but also throughout the day for 4, 5, 6 hours to go Pokemon hunting. They're going across town. They're going on trips to different states because they hear that there's different Pokemon there. You're forcing these people who are normally spending all their money to stay inside and see movies are going outside and they're communicating with other people. And I think that was a really, really big draw that none of these people have mentioned in any of these articles. It sounds like such a weird thing to say, but if you remember how much Pokemon Go for like 3, 4 weeks, which means that you're starting at the beginning of July to the beginning of August, that it was everywhere. Everything on social media was concerning Pokemon Go. General news was Pokemon Go. Everything was Pokemon Go for several weeks, and so that's a big drawback from the box office take that would have been drawing these people in.
Yeah, so I think that begs the question that has been asked on these clickbait articles several times. Are movies relevant in culture anymore? And obviously, they are to us. We do a podcast on movies. We all love movies. I don't like the question.
Right.
I don't like the question. Is the film industry collapsing? Because I don't think that's true. I think with the list of 5 movies I gave you and the sheer number of good films there are out there, I think it's really never been a better time to be a cinephile, because there's so many really well-made movies out there. It's so much easier for people to make movies outside of the studio system these days. It's a really great time for that. But as far as cultural involvement or cultural impact, you're absolutely right. We have all these different other forms of entertainment now, and people right now already only go to the theater. The average person goes to the theater, I think, 4 times a year. That number is going to keep going down, and our these big tentpole blockbuster films that we see that are saturating our summer, that I completely agree with you on that, are those going to matter anymore? Are they going to be able to last and exist?
Gentry, you jump in here first, because I've got 2 points that'll be quick, I promise, but I want to give you a chance first.
Oh yeah, no, it's no problem. I mean, it's been what you guys are saying is very interesting. I mean, honestly, just from looking, just been kind of scanning some of the movies on this list, and everything. It's like every other movie that I see is connected in some way to something that's already been done in the last 20, 30 years. And I think obviously the more years that go by, the more that's going to add up, unless studios kind of change what they're all about, right? And going from just throwing out these cash cow movies that have may have large budgets but may bring in a lot of money over and over and over, and just getting all these ideas that people are familiar with. I think eventually, that's the thing, I don't think it's going to be like a movement. Like, I can't see like a renaissance or anything where like studios are just going to start dying off, or almost partnering up in certain ways to actually put out something decent. I don't think that's ever going to happen. I think it's so apparent now, and I think there are some hidden gems every year, here and there, that will come out, or maybe something be popular but done very well, like some of the Marvel movies. But I think for the most part, everything that I see nowadays, it's it just doesn't surprise me. I think maybe seeing the Ghostbusters come out 10 years ago, or 15 years ago, I would have been kind of shocked, oh my gosh, it's it's back, it's a huge thing. Maybe what Star Wars was, I guess, when we were younger, but now it's oh, surprise, not surprised at all. And another Ice Age, and look, they're doing Tarzan, never heard of that. Independence Day 2, of course. You know what I mean? It's everything is just so done, and I think people are, some people continue to just turn their brain off and watch whatever and enjoy a nice Saturday afternoon or whatever, and with their family or friends or whatever. And then some people are going to see right through it, and they're going to pick and choose a lot more carefully, I would hope, or at least, I mean, not even counting us, excluding us, but just in general, I feel the populace is catching on to just some of this cheesiness. Like I guess it kind of surprised me that some movies like BFG and Finding Dory and The Legend of Tarzan were placed so close to each other. I mean, these movies are like kind of eating each other alive, with Dory kind of being like the big shark, and putting like Independence Day right in the middle of that. Like I get it, it's right before 4th of July, but man,
well,
it just got creamed,
I just think that goes to Adrian's point that there are just so many of these now that there's just not enough time. Like they have to cram all these into a certain amount of weeks, and so that's going to happen.
Yeah, and it's. I mean, is this model working for every studio? The amount of studios that are out there, do they consider this success? Because it doesn't feel like it.
I mean, I'm kind of hesitant to just blame the sequel thing, because I think Hollywood has been sequel heavy, since King Kong. Like, Hollywood has always loved sequels. They've always loved making sequels and rebooting films, and it's always been a safer investment to go with a property that someone knows than to go with something
connected
new.
In some way.
But yeah, I mean, I don't know. I think the whole idea with the tentpole system was that this one big movie would be profitable enough to pay for all the smaller movies, and I think the studio has kind of shifted away from that and is just doing the big tentpole movies. But Adrian, why don't you go ahead and make your points and prove me wrong?
Well, no. I mean, you guys are feeding directly into it, which is the best thing for this conversation. Is the fact that what annoys me all the time is everybody gets so reactionary about this. They jump on it. And of course, part of it's because it's clickbait, and they want to start a very general sense of these discussions. But most people don't realize or know that the fact that for the past 100 years, literally going past 100 years, the filmmaking industry has been doing this.
Yeah.
You can look at any point in time for any movie whatsoever. Doesn't matter how big or small the director. You want to go back way long ago. Alfred Hitchcock directed a movie, The Lodger, a tale of fog and I'm going to forget the other word, but it was a take on the Jack the Ripper story. It was a silent film that he made. Just a couple years later, after he made that movie, the studio decided, we really like this film, but talkies are all the rage now. We want you to adapt this and turn it into a talkie. And he said, no, I don't really have any interest in that. But the actor from who played the character in the original movie said, I love that idea. I'll rewrite the script of this movie and I'll jump ahead. But I mean, it's been going on forever. And people try to find different variations. There was a movie that was made years and years ago that was a heist film that was called High Sierra with a Humphrey Bogart in it. And people, a studio really liked the story and said, hey, what if we turn this into a Western? So they took it, had the same director who made the first movie remake his movie, but as a Western. And somebody said, hey, I really like this Western, but I wish it had more heist elements. So they had it be kind of a very end of the Western genre and have more modern heist elements in it, even though that was basically more along the lines of the first film. And it continually happens. It's everybody makes a big deal that, there's no original movies now. But the studio system's just been continually eating itself for over 100 years. And they put out these movies. And as bad as it sounds, you do need a portion of these ridiculous, horrible remakes because you need them to turn some type of profit. Because regardless of what studio is out there, most of them have a subsidiary that focuses on doing smaller or independent films. And you have to be able to make so much of a profit with these big films so that they have extra capital that they can spend on buying the distribution rights for smaller movies, which dovetails into the second thing that I was going to mention with the way these summer seasons are changing. And it has to do with streaming, not just the TV aspect of it that everybody wants to mention, but the fact that everybody in their home nowadays has some form of streaming device. Somebody has iTunes, somebody has a Vudu account, Somebody has Netflix, somebody has Amazon Prime, somebody has Google Play, YouTube, you name it. They have a way that they can watch or rent movies at any time. If you look at the influx of people who are streaming more, you're seeing a brand new home for lots of smaller films, lots of films that are on the festival circuit that are still might play in a theater for 1 to 2 weeks. They plan around that and they say, okay, we're going to put it in these big cities. Sorry. We're going to put it in New York. We're going to put it in LA. We're going to put it in Chicago. But at the same time that it's hitting there, we're going to put it on these streaming platforms for $4 or $5. So people who aren't able to see it there can still watch this movie. And it goes hand in hand to that. The fact that the Neon Demon just came out in most theaters about 2.5 months ago, and you can already get it on VOD is helping its longevity. It's helping its life. There's a whole bunch of horror movies that, because they don't have a big name actor in them, are given this second life to be on VOD and are able to get word of mouth that way. And you've got lots of directors that are moving up the food chain and are getting to make bigger budgeted films because of the attention they're getting. And so while you are taking away from some of that money from the big blockbuster films, it's because you've got more movies of better quality that are available at a given time, which is really nice. You don't have to go to the theater and see Suicide Squad. You can see this movie that premiered at film festivals around the world. The best example that I can give, even though it wasn't in the summer season, was High Rise. The Ben Wheatley film from earlier this year was in very few theaters, but at the same time came out on VOD the same day that it was in those theaters. And I know, Scott, you and I and a whole bunch of people that we talk to film about, we're so excited that even though they couldn't go see it in the theater, they could still see it at home and then talk to everybody on Twitter or Slack or text each other to talk about this movie. And so even though they couldn't be there in the theater together, they were still able to talk about it. And I think it's because of things like social media that the rise of streaming is changing the way that movies are viewed on that level.
Yeah, I completely agree, and that's why when I hear people say like the film industry is dying, it's nonsense. It's absolute nonsense.
Yeah, it is.
It has never been a better time, and I said this already, but I'll say it has never been a better time to be a fan of film. There are so many good movies out there. You do have to do a little work to find them, because obviously the big budget movies are going to be the ones that they spend the advertising on. So you're going to be pummeled with ads for the sequels or the Marvel movies, or all the things you're going to see thrown at you are these big budget films. But the small budget stuff is out there, and it drives me crazy when people say that there's no original films anymore. Because I just listed 5 of my favorite movies, and
that's pretty
four
simple.
Four of them were original stories. So it's ridiculous. Like I put up on my Facebook a couple weeks ago, just like, what movies are you guys excited about this fall? One of my friends wrote back, well, I'm only excited for nothing, for a film that's not related to any previous material, or not a remake or a sequel, and he listed this long list of complaints. And I was like, and I responded to that by just listing like 10 original movies that were coming out this fall. And it's just like, you just have to be willing to look for them and find them, and they're there. So yeah, I completely agree that this doom and gloom thing is overwrought. Will Hollywood have to change as streaming becomes more popular and new ways of absorbing this entertainment become more and more easily accessed? Absolutely. But it's an industry. It will shift. It will move. It will find the best ways to make money. You can believe that for sure. Film, movies, feature-length films are not going anywhere.
Yeah. Well, and don't get me wrong, like, obviously that is the case. And, what I guess what I didn't realize, or maybe now just kind of looking through this list of movies. So I guess most studios have so many, or have enough projects lined up in a year to where, like, for example, like I'm looking at Jason Bourne, and it's just sitting here like so randomly, on Friday, July 29th, like in between Star Trek and Suicide Squad, and a couple other movies coming out in August, or they came out in August, and it's just like, I guess, do studios think, oh, we have so many good things, or in our eyes, good things lined up, that we need a place to fit this movie in. So like, fuck it, let's throw it into the summer, list of movies or whatever. Like, studios are kind of like they normally do that well to where they can just kind of do that and not worry about it.
I mean, yes and no. I think that movies have kind of changed in that the first weekend has never been more important. So they will find a weekend. While I think you're right that some of these movies run up against each other, where a big movie comes out and then the very next weekend another big movie comes out. It's
just interesting to me to like see them place them like that, and not really. But yeah, go continue.
Yeah, I mean they're really just concerned with getting their weekend, and you'll see a lot of movies back off from certain weekends if someone else claims it. And then you'll see a lot of movies that technically appeal to different audiences will drop on the same weekend. I don't think Secret Life of Pets and Jason Bourne are gonna have the same audience.
Sure,
but
and with kind of like your general audience, like, yes, there are definitely, the original movies aren't just going to stop. That's impossible. People, people have they're creative. They're always going to think of stuff, and that's great. But I do think, in general, your typical audience is just more aware because of, exactly what you guys said, streaming devices and social media and just being connected. And you have these studios making these deals with whatever subsidiary and kind of using that marketing and that promotion to throw out those feelers to certain demos to keep reeling them in, whether it's good or shit. Like Suicide Squad, for example, I loved the trailer. It definitely like reached out to me. I mean, it was so silly and different each time, and it got to the point where I was just like, you know what? This movie, obviously it's come out, it's not getting great reviews, but it's like, I just want to see it at this point.
I told
because
you not to.
I want to see what. No, I know, but like, it's just like you just kind of like, you don't commit necessarily, but they have ways of reeling you in even when it's shit, and that has worked, like Adrian said, for 100 years, and that's interesting to me.
Yeah, I mean, that's marketing. That's what.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah. All right. So that's. I think we all are in a general agreement that these stories are kind of overwrought and overblown, and the film industry is in general in a very good place, and I'm very happy to get to talk about it for an hour and a half every week. But let's move on. Let's move on to looking ahead a little bit. Let's talk about movies that are coming out this fall. We're not going to do a full preview, but let's just each of us touch on what movie we're really excited about this fall. Adrian, why don't you go ahead and go first?
There isn't a ton that I'm super excited about, and that's just because I know we were just talking about it, but lots of the stuff that comes out in basically October is just kind of filler. I will say that I'm excited to see, just because I enjoyed the first one a lot more than I expected I was going to, is the Jack Reacher movie.
Oh yeah, that is coming out this fall. Yeah, I liked that too.
And the first one took me by surprise, and I really enjoyed it. And I know that Tom Cruise as a human being in real life is a crazy person. He is one of the few remaining movie stars who wants to put on an entertaining show. He doesn't really care what his movie is necessarily about, but he's going to give it his all, and he wants the people who are spending their dollars to get their money's worth, basically. So that's why I'm excited to see that one, because his I don't really want to say craft, but what he's putting on display, what he's putting into his movie to make it as best as it can be. Well, the best thing to say is that there's never going to be a time that Tom Cruise isn't giving 100%.
Yeah, that's
the
true.
movie around him can fail, but that guy's doing everything he can to make the best picture that he can. And like I said, as an actual person outside of the movie, he's crazy. But I'm excited to see this movie just because of what he brings to those movies.
Yeah, that's fair. I think he's. I will always go see Tom Cruise movies in the theater for that exact reason. I think it's worth seeing the spectacle on a big screen. So that is one that I will see as well.
And maybe I will go crazy and jump into my first Madea movie and see Boo on Madea Halloween.
I'm definitely going to see that. I don't even know why. It just looks so ridiculous. Gentry, how about you?
I mean, yeah, just, again, going back to this list, Magnificent Seven. I'm always just curious with movies with large casts like this that are westerns or obviously another remake. But
yeah,
why not?
But Gentry,
it looks fun.
The original Magnificent Seven was a remake too. So see, there's Hollywood again. Like they've always been doing this.
Right. That's a good point. I didn't actually know the original was a remake.
It was a remake of it was a remake of Seven Samurai, the Kurosawa film, which is incredible.
Oh, I gotcha. Yeah. So I mean that of course looks interesting. I mean, I remember seeing the Snowden trailer, kind of stuck out to me a little bit, but I don't know. Yeah, nothing really that I'm kind of like dying to see. I guess no trailers that have really grabbed me. Like I'm for sure seeing this. So
I will say that I think this might change for some of us in the next couple of weeks because there are. Well, the reason I say that is because there's several film festivals that are going on right now, or people are doing write-ups of finishing film festivals. Venice just happened, I want to say.
Yeah.
And I believe that Toronto is just about to take place. And there's going to be several movies that end up coming out at the end of the year because of whatever press or buzz they get from these film festivals. And I mean, the three of us are going to be at Fantastic Fest in just a couple weeks, and something could get picked up there that all of a sudden gets dropped at the very end of December too.
Absolutely.
So there's a chance that there's something that we are all of a sudden really interested in out of nowhere.
And that to me is the coolest thing, not the movies we're expecting, but the movies we weren't. And that's why I love Fantastic Fest so much, because you'll go in there not knowing anything about it, some of these movies, and you'll be shocked and have a great time.
Absolutely, that's what's exciting me the most. And then don't get me wrong, like obviously, the big ones I'm not really counting. I'm not looking, obviously Doctor Strange and Rogue One and all that I will see, but like I didn't realize there was a Bad Santa 2, and I liked the first Bad Santa.
So did I.
Hey,
that's right.
I think that technically falls into quote unquote holiday season though, Gentry. See, fall and holiday are two different things.
Okay. So it doesn't quite count.
I don't know where the line stops, but that's technically
not
true.
quite there. No, I think you're right, because it's November 23rd, so it's pretty much Thanksgiving.
Yeah, it's the seasons. That's almost winter.
Yeah,
I guess.
Um,
But then holiday is different than winter, than post December winter.
And no one knows when daylight saving times begins or ends.
Okay, the movie
is
I
Rings related to the Ring?
Yeah, it's the third Ring movie. Yeah, you haven't seen that trailer yet?
No.
Go watch the
No,
trailer.
I haven't.
It's ridiculous.
Oh no!
It's ridiculous. The movie I wanted to talk about that I'm looking forward to this fall, even with the controversy surrounding it, I'm very interested in seeing The Birth of a Nation. It's the Nate Parker film about the slave rebellion. It got really kind of rave responses. Was it Sundance? I think it was Sundance.
Yeah, it was a couple different festivals.
Yeah, it's done very well at a couple different festivals. It was, the front runner for the Oscars until its director was found to have raped someone in the past, and I believe its writer too. Right, the guy that he wrote it with was convicted, and then that conviction was appealed. So the movie has basically left the Oscar race because of this controversy surrounding its creators. But I'm still very interested to see the film. I like to try as best as I can to separate art from the artist. I have to do that every time I watch a Woody Allen film. So I'm still very interested in seeing what this movie is and what the reasons behind the buzz. So that's Birth of a Nation. I think it comes out in October.
They haven't pushed it back or anything yet?
They have not. They've not announced it. They've cut like all their press tours and all that, but they have not said anything about pushing back the release. So
I keep on
it's early October still.
Yeah, I keep on waiting for them to announce it, just with everything that's going on, with them pulling certain press for it, with them saying they think that it's going to be out of the Oscar race, but for what the movie's about, there's always an off chance that I wouldn't be surprised if in kind of this media blackout time, if the day and date comes when it's supposed to be released, it doesn't pop up and they say, oh, we're pushing it back because we're having issues with the distributor or something like that. And then they end up announcing that it's going to be after January in most locations, but have one of those opens Christmas Day in select cities and then nationwide July, whatever. That way they have a couple screenings before the beginning of the year so that they can still qualify for Oscars, even if they end up being up for just technical Oscars, just so that gives them an extra couple months for the fervor that exists now. They can hope to die away to make back more money, which of course is a horrible thing to say, but very much within the realm of possibility when it comes to marketers.
It's a business, right? I mean, at the end of the day, they make these movies to make money. So, yeah, I know there's a lot of controversy surrounding it, and it would be sad if if people turned in some really wonderful performances that definitely would have been honored in the past, but because of this controversy around the director, that these people kind of get robbed of their moment. That would be too bad. So I hope that doesn't happen. But I just kind of know the way the Oscars work, and they tend to run away from anything that's remotely controversial. So I would not be surprised if we don't see this movie on its release date, like you said, and I would not be surprised if we don't see this movie considered in the Oscars at all. But I'm still looking forward to seeing it. So we'll see. All right, so that's all we had for our main topic this week, which was movies. Let's go ahead and before we wrap this thing up, let's move into just what we've been watching. Gentry, you want to start off?
Yeah, sure. So I guess I'll just touch on, I really mostly want to recommend Vice Principals. Both of these shows are pretty much finished or about to finish. Night of, if no one has seen it yet, you definitely need to check it out. It's a limited series. It was on the level of Stranger Things for just kind of coming out of nowhere. Don't get me wrong, they did advertise it for quite a few months, I would say, but it wasn't really much at all. It was a few images and one or two teasers, but I thought the show was fantastic. Just really showed an interesting side. Kind of reminded me, a couple of episodes of Oz. Kind of that style of showing how well, I guess I don't want to spoil it, but basically it shows a lot of the the system and how corruption takes place, given a certain crime and a situation involved. So yeah, definitely recommend it. It's limited, so obviously it's just one amount of episodes, and the other one I really loved that comes on right after it is Vice Principals, which is Danny McBride, and I forget the other guy. I don't know the other guy's name. The one who plays Lee Russell, but it's just been a comedic delight, I guess. It's been I did not expect. Normally, I feel like Danny McBride plays a certain type of character, and in this case, he was able to come with a different type of dimension, and it was just so. It was so similar, but felt very different than what I saw with Eastbound and Down. And, I kind of knew from the second episode that I was like, man, I think they have something here. This is actually really funny. And it feels just, like something I don't get to see. In terms of comedies, I guess it's I don't know if it's something I've been missing or just, a new take on kind of the situation at school where it's basically these teachers who are basically the students, and it's reversed, and the students are kind of just in the background, and it's so funny and it's done so well, and everybody, the actors that they get, they're just nobody's super popular. They all play a great part, and the comedy just hits. And I think it's very smart, and I love the writing. I don't know, I think he's elevated his game. I know he does some of the writing for these episodes, maybe full-on episodes on some, and I just feel like he's kind of taken his approach to a new level. So yeah, I definitely recommend both of those shows, and HBO just continues to impress me. It's not very surprising.
Yeah, it was Walter Goggins plays Lee Russell.
Thank you. Yeah.
I agree with you on Vice Principals. I think it kind of got overshadowed by the amount of talk people were dishing towards the night of, but it is
absolutely.
It is a very well made show. It's very good at what it does.
Yeah.
All right, so Adrian, what about you?
I watched a decent movie and then a bad movie this week.
Really? You watching bad movies? I don't believe it.
Yes. This one, I don't know who, like, there was no name that was attached to it. It was an email address that I wasn't familiar with, but I got an email from some random anonymous person telling me to check out this movie called Ace the Case. There's no one in the movie named Ace, and there's not really a case. It's just a horrible. I mean, technically, if you want to, there kind of is a case, but there's no real actual like police detecting that's done. It's got a very stupid child that continually falls into situations, and it's a weird movie because it's PG-13. Its main character is about 8-9 years old. It's played as if it was made by the same people who made like one of the Beethoven dog movie sequels, but then also has like scenes that are rather serious with what they have on display. There's a character who may or may not be an exiled Yakuza lord. There is a parent that is murdered on screen within the first 5 minutes by one of the main bad guys, but it's never mentioned ever later in the movie that this guy who is this bad guy has killed the main character's parent. It's the actors are terrible. It's shot poorly. It's amateur on every level. But then it has Susan Sarandon in like 8 or 9 minutes of the movie for absolutely no reason. I don't know how she got it. It's a horrible movie. So I curse the person who said to watch it.
This sounds like the exact kind of thing that you would watch, though. So.
Oh yeah. Well, there were some hilarious moments in just how bad the acting is and the decisions that certain people make.
I'm glad you've got.
But on Monday, I saw. You got to find a way to enjoy it. That's all I know.
I'm glad you've got such a reputation
Monday,
now that people just send you bad movies via email.
Oh yeah, it's wonderful. I in a comment section on a website was just jokingly talking about a movie, and somebody made a bad pun saying that I was evil, basically, and then another person, a reviewer for the site, came out and said, no, he's the man no movie can kill, and I'm like, I'll take that. I'll definitely hoist that up, I guess, as a title. On Monday, I watched the new Mel Gibson film Bloodfather, and it wasn't bad. Mel Gibson's actually really good in it. It's unfortunate that he's Mel Gibson, and that's what keeps him from being in large major motion pictures right now, because he's really good in the film. But the second half of the film kind of tapers off and runs on a little too long, which is weird to say for a movie that's an hour and 28 minutes. But to make a recommendation, because I actually saw it pop up on Vudu a couple days ago, that it was available for rent, and I bought it right away because I enjoyed it when I got to see it, because it only lasted for 2 weeks in Kansas City. But I did see this one was Pop Star, the Lonely Island movie with Andy Samberg.
Yeah, see, that was in my
it.
that was in my didn't get to see.
Yes.
Because like I go on vacation for a week, and by the time I get back, the movie's already out of theaters. That's what happens. But yeah, but I think it's coming out on Blu-ray on the 13th, and I'm gonna buy it because that movie probably would have ended up in my top 5 because that's just exactly the type of comedy that works on me. So I really want to see that movie. I'm glad you liked it. All right. So for me, what I want to talk about is a television show that I just watched, but has been out for a while, called Crazy Ex-Girlfriend. Adrian knows this show.
Yes, I do.
It's wonderful. This is Rachel Bloom, who I believe she was Upright Citizens Brigade and also had a YouTube channel where she did a lot of musical comedy. And she wrote, produced, and stars in the show Crazy Ex-Girlfriend. The concept is basically she plays a character who is a lawyer at a big firm in New York City, but she's miserable. She runs into her old high school boyfriend in New York one day, finds out he lives in West Covina, California, only 2 hours from the beach, and decides on a whim that she's going to move out there, take a job at a law firm there, to try to chase him and rekindle their love together, because she decides that's the only moment that she was happy in her life. It's a musical comedy, so literally they just start randomly singing in the middle of episodes, but it's hilarious. It's so well done. The music is so good, but it has this undercurrent of like dealing with real like emotional trauma and problems, and each of the characters goes through some real kind of heavy stuff, and it's just so well done. I was like, I just heard like people liked this, and I knew that Rachel Bloom won the Golden Globe for the show. So I'd heard about it, and then I just happened to see it on Netflix one night, booted it up, and was like instantly in love. It's a really, really great show. The entire first season is on Netflix right now, and I think the second season starts soon.
October.
Yeah, October. So this is, I strongly recommend this for everyone. It's really great.
Who, Rachel Bloom, is she new? I don't know that name.
Yeah, I mean, she's not like, she hasn't done much anything else. Like I said, she was improv troupe and then had her own YouTube website where you can go to see some of her older videos and stuff like that. But yeah, this is her first, this is her real first like breakout project. And it
Very cool.
won her a Golden Globe, so she's doing well, which is great.
Yeah.
And it's we're lucky to have it because it had a weird situation where they made the pilot originally for Showtime, and Showtime picked it up and was going to move forward with it, and something happened and they ended up pulling the plug on the show, and somebody at CW ended up getting a hold of it and really liking it, and so they had a show, thought it was going to exist, and then it died, and then CW saved it, and that's why there's a big, of course, like all pilots and everything, the quality from the first episode to the second episode for like camera wise and everything completely shifts. But in the case of this show, I think that the aesthetic nature of the way it's filmed and everything, it's shifting from that pilot to the second episode is actually a much better fit for it. Yeah,
I agree. The first episode was almost too big. Like it kind of made sense for it to be big in the New York scenes, but as soon as you move to West Covina, California, it doesn't need to be quite as big of a production. I think it works better as a CW show. I'm glad they picked it up, and I'm kind of glad Showtime passed on it, because I think that would have been a very different show.
Yes.
Yeah, so that's Crazy Ex-Girlfriend. Everyone should check that out. I think there are, God, how many episodes? 18, 19? I don't know how episodes work anymore. There's no standard amount of episodes anymore. But yeah, so that's all we had for this week. Gentry, Adrian, thank you guys so much for joining us and filling in for poor sick Matt, who will hopefully be all better next week and be able to join us again. Gentry, why don't you tell us where you can be found?
My Twitter handle is wenchtweet, the 2 words together, and that's pretty much it.
Sweet. Adrian, how about you?
I'm at Adrian Torres.
Great. And if for some reason you guys haven't been listening to this podcast on a weekly basis, Adrian has a podcast on this channel called Phantom Zoned. We did an episode last week on the film Loose Cannons, so go check that out. And there'll be another one,
or don't.
And there'll be another one sometime this month as well on another, hopefully not equally as bad film.
No, because it's a much better film this time.
Okay.
I mean, it's still a terrible film, but it's a much easier sit through and a much funnier sit through.
I hope so, because that was brutal. I can be found on Twitter at ScottDaly85. That's DALY. You can also see all my writing at dailyplanetfilms.com. And that's also where you can see when new episodes of podcasts are posted, any new reviews we're working on, anything really. Also, if you're listening, we're gonna ask you people really nicely. The way podcasts work with how they appear on different platforms is leans heavily on reviews on podcasts. So if you happen to be listening on iTunes, if you could please take the time to go to iTunes. I know it's stupid and non, like, it doesn't make sense. You have to like search for the podcast and find it to leave a review, and then you have to log in, and it's really a pain, but we really, really appreciate it if you take some time and do that. The more reviews we get, it doesn't even matter if it's a 5-star review. You can, I'm not shilling for 5 stars, but it's just the number of reviews. So if you guys listen, if you like the podcast, if you like what we're doing, if you could take the time to do that, we would really appreciate it. And that's all I had. I think next week, I don't know if we've made a plan yet. I think we're gonna do a deconstructing series of another director. I just don't think we've decided on what director we're doing yet, but we will get that figured out. And Gentry, Adrian, thank you guys for coming once again. And for everyone else out there, we will see you next week.
Bye.
I'm leaving that in.